Now, if you remember, we closed on the issue of caring, and caring in relationship to knowing. I am the good shepherd, verse 14, and know my sheep and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring. And they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have the power to lay it down. I have the power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father. Now we continue. There was a division, therefore, among the Jews for these sayings, and many of them said, he hath a devil and is mad. Why hear ye him? Others said, these are not the words of him that hath a devil. Can a devil open the eyes of the blind? And of course, verse 22 now takes us, verse 22 takes us, it's a long distance between verse 21 and verse 22. And it was, of course, at Jerusalem feast of the dedication. It was winter. Jesus walked into the temple in the Solomon's porch. Then came the Jews around about him and said unto him, how long dost thou make us to doubt? If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. Now we ended on the issue of knowing and caring, and how significant it is for the shepherd to have an idiosyncratic relationship with every one of his sheep. He has to know them. The hireling, of course, and this is a comparison between the shepherd and the hireling. And the hireling doesn't want to know and doesn't want to get to know the sheep, because the hireling's purpose is self-aggrandizement. The hireling's purpose is selfishness. So the hireling isn't spending any time with who he is trying to use. He doesn't want to fall in love with who he's going to use, because that's going to weaken his game. If he has any sensitivity at all for who he wants to use, then that's going to weaken him completely and totally. Users have to be cold. The attitude of the user is centered and based on narcissism, self-aggrandizement, selfishness, and all of those qualities go for someone who is cold. On the very opposite now, Jesus is saying, I didn't come to steal, to kill, and to destroy, as the users do. But I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And in order to do that, his life becomes their life. So I give my life for it, which means I'm not taking anything from you. I'm not searching you to find anything that you have, but I've come that you will have a better life. In order to have a better life, then I have to give my life. You see the total difference. The comparison between him and the user is looking to take advantage of you. But he is there for our advantage, because we have absolutely, we have absolutely no defense against the wolf except it be the shepherd. Amen. Now, if the hireling is there simply for himself, then that hireling is not going to be around when danger comes. No, no. The hireling is not going to risk his life for the benefit of anybody else when he's simply there to collect. So you got to understand the mentality of the hireling as opposed to the good shepherd. The good shepherd is there as a buffer between whatever is dangerous and the sheep. So the good shepherd is there to protect. He's there to feed. And he's there to make sure that everything the sheep needs is available. The good shepherd then wants to know, because in order to love you and give you what you need idiosyncratically, then I have to know you. One thing's about ministry, and it's, I think it's germane to the point, and that is that oftentimes in ministry, the leaders, after a certain amount of time, are sequestered. What we call it, in many instances, in making presentations and dealing with the people of God, many times the pastor gets to the place where he's at a certain age and he's busy, and so he's sort of insulated. That is, you know, you've got your protection, you've got the people around you, and they insulate you. But in many instances, in being insulated, you end up being isolated. So consequently now, because you're isolated, you no longer touch people in the place of their need. So what does that leave us? It leaves me insulated, therefore isolated. Therefore, I no longer am in touch with anybody's need. So when I get up, I present what I know, but that's not necessarily what you need. See, if the shepherd is going to operate properly, then he has to have one foot in the problem and the other foot in the solution. If he does not have a clue what people are going through, then he can't identify with their trials or their problems. And if he can't identify, how can he analyze what he's not around? In order to prescribe some medicine, I hope somebody did an analysis. What do you call it in the medical world? You got to diagnose. You see, a whole lot of folks want medicine without diagnosis. You're liable to poison yourself, blow your heart out of place. There has to be some diagnosis. If there's diagnosis, then somebody has to make connection. If there's no connection, there cannot be an analysis and there cannot be a proper solution. So the shepherd has to know his sheep, because the only way he can care effectively is for him to know what it is they need and the care that he needs to bring. It's a very critical piece, and I think it's very important to understand that the hireling is not trying to get to know you. The hireling just wants what you have. And so if there's danger, he's going to be gone. If there's feeding, he's going to give you the least and the worst he can find, or the cheapest he can find, because at the end of the day, he is the one that is the center of the whole operation. When God comes in somebody's life, God makes them the center of the operation. That's why my sheep know my voice. Now we've got knowing on the other side now, because there's absolutely no way to be fed properly, to have all your needs met on time, for the precision of God who goes before and leads you into green pastures, restores your soul, puts you down with still waters where the waters are rushing. Anybody who cares for you like that, then you ought to know them. Because my sheep know my voice. The word gnosko, they know my voice through and by experience. It's experiential knowledge. It's not a knowledge that just came out of an acquaintance. It's a knowledge that comes from being with you every day, being in the fire, being in the water, being in the flood, being when it's sunny, when the sun is shining bright, when hell is all around you, he's right there. So now I know his voice, and a stranger I will not follow. Oh, you see, the knowledge of the shepherd then is so powerful that it keeps you from going astray. So the hireling can't get you. I wish you'd understand it. The hireling can't get you because his voice is a strange voice. His voice is a voice that he has to literally come over the fence to get into the fold, because he can't come through the front door because he's not allowed. Why? Because who's keeping the door is God himself. And God knows who to let in and who to keep out. So if the hireling gets there at all, he climbed over the fence. Now I'm going to make this point. What sheep is going to follow a hireling over the fence? See, the hireling can get in over the fence, but the sheep can't get out over the fence. He's got to go through the door. And the only person he's going to follow out through the door is the shepherd, because the shepherd's the only one allowed in the door. And no shepherd can go outside the door and call his sheep, because they will not follow. There is only one voice they will follow, because they only have faith in one voice. That's why faith cometh by, I wish somebody get it, and hearing by the word of the Lord. I know his voice, which means when I get to know the Lord, then automatically I have great wisdom, because there are many voices in the world, and of all the many voices, I can distinguish the voice of God. Isn't it marvelous when you can wake up and know that God is leading you in a way? Isn't it marvelous to know that some of your most difficult decisions, God took the lead in the decision and worked it out according to his will for your life? Isn't it marvelous? Oh, there is a great difference between soliciting God for your program and God having called you to his program. It's a whole different ball game. Many times we pray, we ask the Lord to come in and bless our program. But if it's my program, he may or may not bless it. But if it's his program, it's already blessed, because it's what he is doing. So I think we ought to change things. We ought to solicit God to solicit us for his program. We say, Lord, I want to volunteer for your program, because my program isn't going anywhere, but your program is automatically best. My sheep know my voice, and they're not going to follow a stranger. That means sometimes God has to open your eyes to people who have climbed over the fence for you to realize that they aren't the ones that God has called you to follow. I'm about to take it further. I had problems as a child trying to understand how the second blind man would fall into the ditch. I'm walking out of these laces, man. You'll be working all night. How the second blind man, yeah, tight this up for me. Don't put it on Instagram. How the second blind man would fall into the ditch. I had problems with that. I say, now, Lord, I don't understand why you would let the second blind man, the first one who was blind, thank you, and he's blind, but he presumed to lead. he was presumptuous to take on a leadership role when he knows he's blind. My problem was with the second blind person who latched on to somebody blind. And I was saying, now, Lord, why let the second blind man fall into the ditch? Let the first blind man fall since he presumed to lead, and then let the second blind man step over him and keep going. But finally, as I matured, I found out that if anybody should know the characteristics of blindness, it should be the blind person. So if I have latched on to you and I'm blind, and you keep stumbling around and keep hitting things, then I need to ask, can you see? I am convinced that much of our trials and tribulations, and much of the times when we find ourselves in dire straits, we need to check who we're with. Selah. Give some consideration, and I'm on the fringes now of the text with this, well, so allow me to digress. Give some consideration to the mariners. The mariners who knew when to sail. They knew the relationship with the lunar, the moon, and the waves. They understood the seasons, and they did it multiple times. But they took somebody on board. Yeah, they took a fellow on board named Jonah. And I'm sure they must have said to themselves, how in the world did we miss it? We've sailed this route over and over again. The conditions were wonderful when we got on board. We had packed all of our commercial belongings, the things that we are trading when we get to Tarshish. And we left in wonderful weather. And now we're ending up in a cataclysmic extirpation. Why? Our plans were good. The season was right. We charted this water over and over again. So why are we in the middle of the storm? Because you got somebody in your space that's out of the will of God. And you know you're in serious trouble when you have to throw everything overboard to stay afloat, and the fella who's got you in the trouble didn't lose anything. Now you know you're in trouble when you have somebody in your space that's causing you to lose everything you started out with. You got to watch who's in your space. You know, you get blessed by blessed people being in your space, but you get cursed by cursed people being in your space. You got, Lord have mercy. While they were asleep. You nervous and scared, halfway to death, roaring for your life. And he's comfortable. You know you're in trouble when you got somebody in your space, you totally uncomfortable, and they just relaxed. Watch your life falling apart, and they just... Can I have some more water, please? Give some thought. Then they knew, knowing God like I do, he always shows you the trouble. And that's your problem right there. That's your problem. And they still didn't want to throw him overboard. How many times God tried to clear your space and you cluttered it up again? God clearing your space out so you can find his purpose and walk according to his will. There you go, picking somebody else. Oh, this seat is empty. Let me get somebody in this seat. Sometimes you just got to wait until God supplies the person for the space. An empty space is not bad all the time. An empty space is fine because that's a place where God can put the right person in that space. I'd rather it be empty until God fills it than to fill it with what I don't need. Oh, yeah. Stranger they will not follow. So now his enemies are again confused because you and I know that he was poking at the Pharisees, holding on so stringently and ebulliently to their tradition and not opening themselves to the newness of his move. The newness of his move. It's interesting that they always have the worst words description for Jesus. Always belittle the master. No, it's never superlative. It's never superlative. It's never a good word. Except for the people who receive the miracle. You see the difference? It's hard for me to have a theology about Christ. First of all, when he's threatening where I stand. Because all of a sudden Jesus has swept into a world that was strictly organized religion. I'm here to tell you that you can't get more organized in religion than Judaism. Organized religion. And all of a sudden, here comes this revolutionary Jesus. Let's give you an idea. Let me give you an idea about revolution. He had to have a fellow to come before him to direct the people of the day, to point him out. Now, you got to look at the man who was assigned to announce Jesus. He wasn't the kind of man you could take home and say, Mom, I'm planning to marry this man. Your mother would want to know, where is this going? All right, so he's coming to dinner. What are we going to prepare? Locusts and wild honey? What kind of diet is that? You can understand just how fierce a revolutionary Jesus would have to be if you got a man like John pointing the way to him. I mean, just looking at John alone will tell you some serious things are coming. Because whoever John is pointing out as the Messiah, and he turns around and say, I must decrease and he must increase. What kind of revolution is Jesus bringing? He's destabilizing all that they have cherished for hundreds and hundreds of years. Then he goes into their temple with their, and he overthrows stuff. He's whipping money changers out, so he takes authority over the temple. Then he heals on the Sabbath. He takes authority over the Sabbath. Then he takes authority over their traditions. Then he takes authority over everything that they have held sacred. And he turns around and says, I didn't come to destroy, but I came to fulfill. I'm the fulfillment of everything you want. Here's what it says to me. It says to me that we can become experts at doing the function of religion and still miss the very substratum of religion. How do you miss the one you're having religion about? I wonder if Jesus showed up, you think maybe we'd put him out? What is happening here is you establish the fact that you can be religious and not be spiritual. So ultimately what you end up with is a form of godliness, but you just denied the power thereof. The sheep who know his voice don't minimize him, because the shepherd is just too important for my well-being for me to minimize him. You have a relationship with religion, but not with the God of religion. You're worshiping who you're worshiping. it's an interesting dynamic. Now, I'm not going to try to upset you about this. I'm going to try to upset you. I go to some churches, and they stand to read the word. They stand in honor of the word. But standing to read the word doesn't give you any greater insight to it. You just stood. And you're, of course, I honor the word. Yes, you're honoring the word. But I can sit and honor it too. And at the end of the day, my responsibility, no matter whether I stand or sit, no matter whether I put have a big staff or wear some long robe, when I go to these meetings and they want to put all these things on me, I don't even know the name of the stuff. And I just come in there normal, try to be normal. And I try to confess, I said, Jesus died to get rid of all of that. I mean, please tell me, children of God, what could I wear into this church on Sunday to make you feel like I really got close to God? Now, somebody design it for me. What can I wear? How many wraps must I have on my head? And how big must the staff be to really show that I have come in contact with the Almighty God? What kind of ornamentation can we put in this place? Somebody came in once and said, Bishop, there is no cross in the church. So we threw one up there. Right. We had to give him a cross. What ornamentation can we put in here? Do I need eucalyptus trees from Egypt? Do we need stones from the Jordan, from the Red Dead Sea? I mean, what do we need? What do we need to make it look like we are very close to the Lord? How much gold do we need? How much silver do we need? I mean, what do we need? At the end of the day, he'll turn around and tell you that he does not dwell in buildings made by hand. There's nothing you can do with the building. We might as well be in a tent where the Spirit of the Lord is anointing us and the move of God is present. And when a lot of sheep who know his voice. How do you miss him like that? So now you're going to call him a demon. It's not. Oh, yeah. They call him a devil. You call him insane. He's devil. He's mad. So he's off somewhere. He's either possessed or his faculties aren't working. Miss him completely. Earlier, if you remember, they wanted to question the man who was blind that Jesus healed. It's still in the same flow, just later on. They went to his parents and tried to prove to his parents that that wasn't their child. Please. How can you convince a mother this is not her child? So they failed there. Parents said he is of age. Talk to him. And then he became a teacher because towards the end he used the word we. So he put himself in the category of the Pharisees when he said we. So a blind man, instant teacher, because everybody can have the debate if you choose. But I had the miracle. things change. Now, we all can sit and debate our position and our conviction, but who had the miracle? See, the individual who has had the personal experience is an individual who's qualified to talk. The individuals who don't have the experience aren't qualified to talk. How many people are talking in your life who have not had any experience with you? I mean, really, how can you be such an expert about somebody you don't know? Isn't that one of our problems with life? It's that we've got a whole lot of so-called experiential people who don't know us. Haven't been around, haven't touched, haven't associated. So why do you have an opinion? The man, I mean, he instantly became a teacher. Why? Because I don't know who opened my eyes. I know I was blind, but now I see. So in the same group, you're calling him a demon. The next group is calling him mad. But in the same house, the enemy is now divided. Because in the same house, and according to the construction of the Greek, there are Pharisees who are debating now each other, where one says he's mad, another says it's a demon. And it says, well, why are you listening? Well, it's something about Jesus that in spite of how you feel about him, you still hang around and listen. Why are you still listening? The other group said, never a man spake like this man. Another group said they were sorely astonished when he grabbed the waves, spanked them like a little baby and told them to be still. And they were all astonished at his action and his speech. Sent them to collect him. They couldn't collect him because they said never a man spake like this man. And he's now got them divided. Anytime God moves in power, there is division among religious folk. The folk who he fed, the woman with the issue of blood, the lepers who he healed, the Lazarus that he raised from the dead, I guarantee you none of them have a debate about who he is, because they experience the miracle. If you experience a miracle, you'll know the miracle worker. Debate him all you want to. But when you get a miracle, you know him for yourself. He touched me. Oh, he touched me. Now you're sitting around there arguing, but you ain't got a touch. He touched me. When you get a touch, it'll change the way you talk. You'll go from debate to worship. Oh, it'll move you from debate to praise. It'll move you from debate to worship. Hold that argument as to who he is. Let me just praise him for a minute. Let me just lift him up because he touched me. I was blind, but now I see. It's something. It's really something. The guy's a steady conversation. Others, from the Greek aloi, had a different view. That's verse 21. Others. These are not the words of him that hath a devil. You been in religion so long. You've been in religion so long that all your religious position now is an argument. It's just an argument. Just debating who's right, who's wrong. And there's no miracle touch. Now, if it's anything we know, there's some things we know. We know devils don't work to make people's lives better. There's something we know about devils. We have to be overly religious to know what devils do. I don't know if you have experiences I had. People who totally don't know you. They don't know what drives you if they don't know you. They don't know what your motivations are. They don't know where your inspiration comes from. But they're so vociferous about their opinion. And I keep telling you that some people only get attention when they're opposing you. The only time they come out of the darkness into some light is when they took on opposing you. Who is he? Oh, he's the one that's talking about the bishop. Where did he come from? We don't know. We just know him from talking about the bishop. Never come to the light until something you did drew them out. And then they can't authenticate it because they didn't witness it. So now you're calling him the worst words, and you're going to demean him so terribly until we know you don't know him. I mean, he's opening eyes, and you call him a devil, but we know devils don't do that. Now, I have to take it further. I pull a muscle in this leg, Lord help me. I got to take it further. There's a distinction, a great distinction, between seeking truth and dispelling, or might I say, my filter came on, so I be real careful and how I put this out. Seeking truth with an open mind generally leads to knowledge. With an open mind seeking truth. Seeking to disqualify with a closed mind spits out a venom. To call Jesus a devil is venomous. It has nothing to do with the analysis of the individual and his behavior. It simply has to do with a sickness that's internal. Which means he wouldn't be accepted by them no matter what he did. Because people aren't evaluating from what he is producing. Yet still, one of his witnesses was his works. You remember early when we started talking about his witnesses and the various witnesses, the witness of John, the witness of his father, the witness of his works. I'm not good at telling you what a tree is by looking at it. I'm not good. I mean, I grew up in Jamaica. You got breadfruit, you got banana, you got plantain, you got guavas, you got jackfruit, soursop. You ain't never heard of nothing like that, have you? I mean, all kinds of trees. And I'm not good at telling you what that tree is. But if you let me hang around long enough to see the fruit, I can tell you what kind of tree it is if I can get a hold to the fruit. I just need, thank you for, to get a hold to the fruit. And I can tell you what kind of tree it is if I can get a hold to the fruit. See, why don't you just wait on your judgment until you check out the fruit? Can't tell by the leaves on it. You look good. Oh, you got them eyes back here, here. And I know God didn't grow that much hair under your eyelids. Things are all up in the hair. Put them down on a dress or somebody. Oh, that thing is wiggling. What is that? I mean, you looking real good. Nails done, oh, I mean, toe. Oh, my God, you look good. Gucci on, Prada. You looking real good. Some of that opium you done sprayed on yourself, whatever that thing is supposed to do, opium, whatever. Smelling good, looking good, but where's the fruit? We looking at you, judging you by the cover, but we don't see no fruit. Show me the fruit. Less on the looks and more on the fruit. You call him a devil, that's venom. Heals on the Sabbath day and you angry. All right, fine. But don't make him out to be a devil. Don't reduce him. Now in another place in Matthew, he's very, very serious about this indictment. When they said something about casting out devils by Beelzebub. And he made a statement that is an axiomatic truth. Don't even have to be questioned, and that is a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. And Satan is way too organized. Way too organized. So if I'm casting devils out at all, I couldn't be a part of his group. Have you ever given some thought? I have. What was God doing while Satan talked a third of the angels out of heaven. What did Satan promise these angels to move them to rebel? Huh? Just give some thought. I mean, I'm not trying to, the Bible doesn't give us any answers to it, so I'm not going to go there, but I have to wonder how slick a talker he must be to talk angelic beings out of heaven. I know I need a shepherd now, because if Satan shows up with that kind of slick talk, shepherd, please help me with this kind of slick talk. Shepherd, you have to call on the name of the Lord. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. He is a deceiver, master deceiver. And while one man is saying that demons blind eyes, they don't open them. And the half that said demons blind eyes, they don't open them, was speaking to a group of people whose eyes were blind. The one they called the devil just opened eyes. But the devil, the archdemon, had them blinded by their own religion. Used thereto to blind them from the substratum of what they're worshiping. They got so caught up in the form that they forgot the God of the form. It's like you renting a U-Haul to move a couch and drive off from the house with the U-Haul without the couch. But why did you rent the thing in the first place to bring the couch? The only reason we have this religious thing set up is to have the Lord in the middle of it. Sit around and debate 135 different apostolic groups. 135 of us can't agree. And of the 135 of us, 135 of us are right. Everybody else is wrong, and we are right. 135 of us. Each is right, not getting along with the others. And the most divided place in the world on Sunday, churches. The enemy of the will of God is not the drug addict or the dope pusher. The biggest enemy of the will of God, churches. And we insist we're right. Yes. Dogmatic emphatically so. Can't get along with you 5 minutes so. And ain't seeing no fruit. While we're debating, the homeless still homeless. While we're debating, they're studying war right now. While we're debating, ignorance and poverty is rampant while we're debating. Millions of people are going to bed without clean water while we're debating. Souls are being lost every day while we're debating. The will of God is not being fulfilled by those of us who have been commissioned to fulfill it. Oh, and we have the best choirs. Our musicians are meticulously skilled. The preached word is grandiloquently presented. And somebody said, no, but we can't find Jesus. Because he's saying something like, I was hungry. Y'all didn't feed me. I was in prison. You didn't come to visit me. And, you know, here's what we say. It ain't my fault in prison. Why am I going over there? Naked. Wouldn't put any clothes on me. And yet still we're doing pretty well. Huh? How many of you have worn the same dress to church twice in a row? Last week and this week. Oh, it goes like this. I wonder, this is the closet now. I can't find nothing to. You can't find nothing to wear. Got a garage full of clothes. Americans are the only ones I know with garages that can't keep cars. The car outside, the garage full. You love shoes, don't you? Yeah, I love shoes. You love shoes, right? Shoes. Shoes everywhere. My sister has so many shoes, she's got a picture of the shoe on the box to tell what's inside. Or if you really want to get her mad, just switch up them shoes in that box. Just put different shoes in different boxes. She put one down. Oh, my God. We don't know how to rearrange it. We don't know which baby is mine. Somebody went into the nursery and switched all the babies. And yet still people are naked, not clothed. They said, but Lord, when did we see this? We never saw you in it. He said, as you've done to the least. And when we're kind to the disenfranchised, Americans call it socialism. Because capitalists don't do that. Amen. And I'm not knocking capitalism. I'm not knocking capitalism. I get on the plane and I'm flying. I want it to be a capitalist flying the plane. You hear me when I tell you, now I might be off. But I want a capitalist flying the plane. I want somebody to love money up behind that stick. I want a capitalist. I don't need a religious fanatic flying a plane. I don't need that. Fella just decide he got to go into the mountainside. I don't need that. I need somebody loving money because he's going to try to stay alive. I'm not knocking it. But the early church would have been socialist because they sold all and distributed the goods among the people around. I'm not knocking capitalism because you have to have profit in order to be a philanthropist. You can't give money away if you don't have any. But it's the love of money. That's the root of all evil, not the devil. It's the love of money. And when churches begin to love money and not serve the community, love money and build bigger and greater places and edifices while people are starving in the street, we got to reevaluate what we're here for. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and we have been given the mantle. Or we'll end up a group of people debating and arguing because they haven't experienced a miracle. Ooh, I'm closing. The demons might blind one, but no demon would cause one to see. And yet still the archdemon had blinded the eyes of many Pharisees to the very nature of Jesus' person and his mission. Once you're blind, all the beauty of the Lord flowing in front of you, and you won't receive it because you're so steeped in your religious, grandiose thinking of yourself. I could not be wrong. Always right. Never give a listen to anyone else's position because you've closed the door on yours. So you're in a little prison of your own beliefs to the point where you reject the very power that is in front of you. Thomas is a good example. Doubting Thomas. And here's something that we as 21st century Christians don't give much credence to. At the words of the Lord. He says, Thomas, you had to put your finger. But there are some coming who won't have this experience. It won't be a sensual experience. Thomas was sensual because his senses were in play. He could see the wound. He could touch him. That was sensual. But I've got a group of people coming who will not see this wound, will not touch this wound, and yet they will believe to the point where they'll give their lives for something they didn't see like you. So here are the disciples moving around. Here are the Pharisees moving around having the experience of Jesus Christ. And I wouldn't want to be that close and leave with nothing. How in the world could you be that close and leave with nothing? The religious leaders in the community leaving with nothing. And yet a centurion from somewhere far can come and say, I'm not worthy for you to come into my house, but if you just send the word. I give commands and people move. And you're much greater than I, and I believe you can give a command from San Francisco and set somebody free in San Diego if you just speak the word. And yet the folk who were studying him every day can't even touch him, can't even find him. Herod sending out mass murderers, infanticide, killing kids, trying to get to Jesus. Huh? Anytime God has anointed you richly and laid his hand on you in power, somebody's not going to like it. Somebody's not going to like it. Anytime God moves in your sphere, gives you influence and gives you the power to persuade and touch other people's lives positively, there's a devil on every corner that can't stand what God is using you to do. But what are you going to do? Stop? The devil is a liar. The devil is a liar. I can tell you how powerful you are by who your enemies are. Show me your enemies and I can show you how anointed you are. Show me who's against you and I can show you how much power you have. Because the devil isn't sending any privates to get generals. I'm closing. I'm closing. I don't want to miss it. And I think that's what every child of God. Because now remember, the no goes both ways. Notice, I know my Father, and he knows me. I know my sheep. They are known of me, and they know me. And a stranger they will not. Whew, feel like shouting. Do you know what removes the strangeness of each one of us? The Holy Spirit. You're not a stranger anymore. When I walk into the room and feel the presence of God emitting from you, I might not know your name, but you're not a stranger. I might be seeing you for the first time, but you're not a stranger. Because the spirit that moves in you is moving in me. And this spirit connects people who don't know each other physically, but I know you in the spirit. I feel like shouting in here. Oh, it penetrates, it goes deeper than color. It goes deeper than nationality. It goes deeper than whether you're living or you're dead. For the dead in Christ shall rise, and we that are alive and remain